Get started again because it's going to be a long night. The next thing we have is number 8, and it's going to be a presentation of our salary consultant, Mr. Blair Johansson. Blair, you're recognized.
All right. Thank you, Madam Chair. We've got a few PowerPoint slides to provide the update. Okay. To provide the update on the market study, the internal analysis, and some recommendations, and I'll take you through the presentation. One of the things that we look for is what's the average adjustment that we'll expect in the given year as well as the future year as you're doing your budget planning. And for the state of Arkansas, based on the World at Work study, which is in essence the international group that works with compensation studies, we're looking at a 3%, both mean and median, and next year 3.1 to 3% for this next budget year. Excuse me. When we bring that locally through the NOARC study, which represents this last year or the current year, 53 organizations. For 2006, we're looking at general increases averaging 2.83%. Excuse me, a COLA of 2.25 and merit close to 3% at 2.94. As you look at what the organizations are projecting for this next year, 2.79% for a general increase, the COLA at 2.28 and merit at 3.37. Now, this represents an average of both exempt and non-exempt employees. If we were looking at exempt employees, for example, merit at about 3.5% instead of 3.37. So it does represent the full workforce, both those that are eligible for overtime and those that are not. This provides a list of the organizations in Northwest Arkansas that submitted data. And the reason why I supplied this is to make sure that you get a good feel for the organizations that are represented. It's both public and private organizations, both fairly large organizations and smaller organizations. So it does give you a good feel for what's happening in the market for Northwest Arkansas. When we look at the average pay, both salary and hourly rates for the state average for 2015, $38,540 or $1,853, and that's taking all employment within the state and then dividing out by the number of employees that are in the workplace. And that gives you a good frame of reference for the state. For Northwest Arkansas, the regional average is higher than the state. It's $43,570 and $20.95 on an hourly basis. For Washington County, given our current pay and the employees, we're at $36,417 or $17.51. And again, that's an overall average. We have people above that and people below it. But it does give us a good frame of reference, both for the region and for the state. Our current, in comparison to the pay structure, the current minimum, midpoint, and max, based on job titles and where people fall within that range structure, we have 61% of the workforce underneath the midpoint of the range and 39% that are above the midpoint. Based on tenure, and this kind of ebbs and flows. Every time you give an increase, then that percentage goes up because we're moving towards the midpoint. And then over time, when we don't have an increase, then we start to lose some ground when we change our range structure. If our range structure stays consistent, then we stay at about 60-40. Preferably, based on tenure, you'd want to try to be at least 50% or better for those that are above midpoint. Now, this is going to be a comparison. Where are we today compared to the overall market? And we've been consistently comparing against these entities over the last probably 6 to 8 years. So when we look at the market, we're looking at a consistent market comparison. So the Northwest Arkansas cities, which represents the larger cities, so it's Rogers, Springdale, Fayetteville, and Bentonville. The Department of Labor represents taking data from the Department of Labor, but it's for the Northwest Arkansas markets, or our SMSA, our statistical area. The NOARC studies, what I mentioned earlier, is 53 organizations that supplied their pay data for this year, Benton County and Sebastian County. What this represents is, for example, the Northwest Arkansas cities, our internal average pay, what we're currently paying our employees compared to like-type positions within the cities, we're 13.1% behind. 9.4% on the Department of Labor, NOARC 9.2%, 4.8% with Benton County, and a little bit less than 1% ahead of Sebastian County. And consistently, that's been our market group that we've compared with. So from a historical perspective, back in 2014, we were a little less than 2% behind market when we look at the overall average. In 2015, last year, we were at 3.31%, and then this year, we're at 17.16% behind the market. And that happens if we're not able to give an adjustment to base pay, we lose ground because the market is going to continue to move. And as I was showing you earlier in the previous slide, the market's moving at about 3% on the average, and then we have some entities that are paying more than that if they're paying merit pay, and so that's one of the reasons why we lost a little more than 3%, because we have some of the municipalities that are paying better than 3% for their uniform positions. So for police and fire, they're actually above 3% on an overall average adjustment. Now, this is going to be new. This isn't something that we've done in the past, but we had a request from one of the JPs to dig in a little bit deeper as to what that 7% behind the market represents. The county has 181 job titles, and what this graph does is it says, okay, based on 4 titles at the top there, where we have 4 titles, where we have 4 titles which may represent more than one employee in that title, and they're between 10%, 10.1 to 15% ahead of the market average, those 4 titles. The next one is between 5% to 10% ahead of the market, 7 positions. And then the next group is 16 position titles, which could represent more than 16 people, 0 to 5% ahead of market. And then when you start to go below that, what that represents is in that next 2 groups where we have 45 titles, which represent quite a few employees, that are between 0.1% to 5% behind the market average. The next group, 5 to 10%, 45 titles, and so on. So what this is doing is helping us to determine where are we behind at a per title basis as opposed to the overall organization at 7%. And we wanted to do this so that, and we also provided you the detail of that information so you could see by title which positions are behind on a per position title basis, and specifically what's that percentage. All right, and then this next slide is going to be the recommendations. So historically, it's been 5 years, or we'll be coming up to 5 years on this next budget cycle since we've adjusted the pay range. And I mentioned last year that we would recommend adjusting the pay range, and what we're saying is a 3% adjustment to the range. Now, that doesn't cost you money immediately. It costs you money if you weren't giving any adjustments to employees' pay, because then if we weren't getting an adjustment to employees' pay, we'd have some under the minimum of the new structure, and that would cost you dollars. But as long as you're giving adjustments to employees' pay, adjusting the pay range allows us to be competitive on our hiring rate, and it allows us to have a little bit more longevity for those who've topped out at the maximum. A recommendation that we have for a lot of our clients is that they move their range every other year by about 2%, so that they're staying a little bit behind employee pay adjustments at 3%. And so it's been a while. So we're recommending that the county adjust the pay range and then adjust employees' pay by 7%. That's quite a bit more than what we've recommended in the past. Last year it was a 3% recommendation. And if we had had the money or made that decision, then today we'd probably be about 4% behind market. What's important about this 7% is that this next year, the market in general is going to move about 3%. So if we allocate the money at 7%, we're still 3% behind next year because the market is going to move 3%. Historically, whenever we've gotten behind, the county has stepped up and stepped forward. If we go back to 30 years ago when we started working with the county, if this helps a little bit, the county was 15% behind market when we started back 30 years ago. And at that time, the Quorum Court made a decision to increase the millage so that we could have the resources to address being more competitive with our employees' pay. And I recognize that we've saved the residents and citizens money over a period of time with less millage, from 44 down to 39. But here's an opportunity for make our investment in employees and to address this opportunity to be competitive with pay. And if it means additional resources from the community, then that's what it means to be competitive and retain our employees. So a couple of the bullets there, that third bullet, I think that's important to say that at the lowest level, in our lowest grade level, that we would move from $10.76 to $11.03. That's at the janitor level. We've had some discussions about that, and then the schedule would move up from there. I'm incorrect about the 85% on the elected officials. I believe that's 83% based on an adjustment made a few years back. But the point is that we really want to make sure that we stay competitive from the elected officials' perspective. And at one time, the court considered or entertained making a higher percentage for those who make a commitment to be an elected official for more than 2 terms. And would we make a distinction on tenure for an elected official as opposed to someone who has just come on board as an elected official. So that's the recommendations that we have based on the market study and the current internal pay. We'd be happy to entertain any questions.
J.P. Harbison?
Do you have the number of dollars to do the 7% with everything?
Yes.
Is it in here?
Yes, it's attached to the ordinance. And you actually were handed an updated copy because we did receive notice today that APERS is increasing the contribution for retirement. So,
What percent?
it's going up to 14.75% July of 2017.
I'm sorry, yes, J.P. Maxwell.
Thank you, Madam Judge. A couple of questions for you. On the 3% salary adjustment or range adjustment that you're recommending there.
Right.
And then you're recommending the salary pay actually go up by 7%. Which one of those goes into effect first?
Right. So historically, what we've done in the past is we've implemented that at the first of the year. And so what that would do is it would give a bump to the person who's under minimum, and then they get the 3% on top of that. We're not recommending that we do that. We're recommending that we adjust the range now or first, and then the overall adjustment in pay is going to bring someone under minimum, above minimum, and on into the first quartile instead of layering that on top of the range adjustment. So the purpose for that was to say when the range adjustment's made, it's not costing you money because you're using your employee pay increase as your actual dollars to expense. So that gets confusing because some people say, well, okay, it's 3% plus 7%. That's not the case. It's a range adjustment which doesn't have dollars associated with it because we're moving the structure. The real dollars are associated with what we allocate to give the pay increases.
Maybe I'm still a little confused. So when we change the salary range by 3%, do we do that first? And then we apply the pay increase?
We make the adjustment, but we don't adjust an employee's
Right.
pay to that minimum. We use the 7% to get them into the,
So we raise the ranges and then we raise their pay from where it currently is, and that in theory should eclipse that salary range adjustment.
it will.
And then it just keeps those levels up, but we don't actually have a compounding raise going on.
That's exactly right. So in the past, when sometimes we've done that, where we brought them up to midpoint, and we layered the 3% on top of it, it created compression issues with people who had been here for a longer period of time.
Perfect.
And we don't want to do that again. We want to not have that happen.
Do you have, one follow-up question on page 15. You have the job titles that we're paying well above the market norm, and then you have job titles that we're paying below on a graduated scale there, Norm. Is there a quick access to what those job titles are, or the salaries associated with that? Which ones are being above the average and which ones are below?
You mean the internal job titles?
Yes.
Would
On
that,
page 15, the Washington County average pay variance to
Right.
market pay average by job.
yeah, there's a detailed table.
Page 17 and 18.
Okay. But you don't have them broken out like you have this graph? I guess that's what I'm asking.
Yeah, they're grouped, they're banned. So, do you have,
What
do you have
page
this
is that?
one? Do you have this one that shows the, by title?
17 and 18.
It's probably a little bit further back. But it'll correspond with the banding of that 5% by title.
And when you have those percentages to the left, is that a cumulative average of Benton County, Sebastian County, Northwest Arkansas cities, NOARK, Department
Yeah.
of Labor, and the market average?
That's
Okay.
correct. That's
Okay, so
correct.
you've lumped them all together?
Yes.
Counties in it, okay,
Right.
thank you very much.
Uh-huh.
Any other questions?
Thank you, Judge. Blair, we've in the past tried to address the disparity of the significance of the percentage off of the market by doing various things, cents per hour, percentages based on certain ranges. It would be interesting to see what it would take to bring those folks that are significantly below market up to market, and those that are above market still be able to give them a range. Is it possible to calculate the financial cost to accomplish that? Is that something we can do and to take a look at? And then use it in a way that you don't create some kind of other
Right.
compression problem because of
Yep.
length of service in the
Right.
job, that type of thing.
Yeah, so it can be done, but
Okay.
you would definitely want to take tenure in position in consideration, so we're not just automatically giving an adjustment to, a significant adjustment to someone who just started compared
Right.
to someone who's been here for a long time. So you definitely have to look at tenure in relationship to the person who's been in the job to go that route.
Is that doable? Is that something?
It's
you
a
can-
significant matrix, but it's definitely doable.
I would like to see that, to see
Right.
what's your recommendation to do that, because then you would bring the folks that are quite a bit below market, and, depending on the number, we might have to do it over a course of a couple of years, but it would be helpful, as Mr. Luther talked about, losing our technical and mental assets that we have, because as people are on the job, they know what they're doing. They don't need as much attention.
Right.
They become more valuable, they're more efficient with the customers, our county residents, as they come in and do. I'd like to see them do that, and just looking at the 8.2, it brought that to mind, that if we could do something that would affect the folks that are so far off market without messing with your compression, I'd like to see what a number would look like that, if you can pull that together for us.
All right?
Thank you.
J.P. Eckley?
Thank you, Madam Judge. Mr. Johansson, thank you for the information. Gosh, it's a lot to digest in one evening, but you said, first of all, you would like for us to adjust the range to 3%.
Right.
Which doesn't cost anything, it's just adjusting
The structure.
the structure. What I'd like to do is, if this is possible, is separate the percentage of the employee pay and the range into two separate motions, so that way at least we can get one accomplished over the other.
Okay?
You see what I'm saying?
Yes,
Is that doable?
that's doable.
Would that complicate your matrix system?
No, because when we're doing the comparison on outside pay, we're not looking at the structure, we're looking at actual pay. So you could actually move the structure, and that's not going to change the reporting as far as what it would cost for a 7% adjustment, or to do, as Rick mentioned, to be more specific about trying to address those that are further off the market compared to those that are not as far off the market.
It's,
But yes,
But
you can
for-
separate those.
Okay, but
right.
step one, your recommendation to Justice Maxwell was to adjust the range, correct?
That's correct. Yes.
Madam Judge, I'd like to make a motion that we adjust the pay range by 3% recommended by Mr. Johansson and his group. Thank you.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
It needs to be an ordinance.
Without, maybe speaking against my own personal best interest here, yeah, I think it has to be in the form of an ordinance.
Okay. Well, then we will see to it that we put
Get
that
an
in the form of an ordinance.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.
J.P. Cochran?
Thank you, Judge. Wouldn't we normally address that in our budget controls ordinance that we do? Isn't that where we've had this before?
That's one way. You could do it as a standalone ordinance, but I think traditionally it has been done in budget.
That's correct, and it usually ties in with the beginning of the budget cycle.
Exactly, and we need a
Right.
time on this because as the motion is made, it would go into effect right now. That would really create you a problem.
That would be an issue if we did it right specifically now. Okay, there you go. We would.
So now you're going to get with Steve and talk about an ordinance, or you're going to take care of it in budget controls, however, whatever's the best way. Get with Steve on this.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, J.P. Madison.
Have you all looked at trying to separate out law enforcement to consider them sort of in a separate banding?
Okay, so, good point. So, specifically, how they would fit into some of the, or compared to the structures, not actually pulling that together. We have access to it. Probably what would be good is just some preliminary information. So two of the cities, Fayetteville and Springdale, have a step in place, a step program in place for uniform positions. Rogers and Bentonville have a range.
And when you say step, it's like a,
Yeah, so it's a specific
Automatic. Okay.
step for each year of
Okay.
service, right, as opposed to a range. So we have two cities of the predominant larger cities that have the step program and two that have a range
Okay.
in place. Benton County has a range in place. They don't have a step.
but are they separate? Is their pay structure
No, they're not.
separate?
They're
Okay.
actually built into the overall, like the county.
I think the city of Fayetteville's is, I
Well,
think.
Yes,
Oh, okay.
Fayetteville and
Okay.
Springdale, because,
Okay,
yes.
so when you say they're in a
yes.
step system, that's
That's
separate.
correct. They
Okay.
are separate and they are step for Fayetteville and Springdale.
Because I mean, that's still where I am on this pay issue, is
Right.
that I want to do a raise, but I think we have to address the sheriff's concerns about law enforcement not really fitting in with the other. And so I think before we can do it the right way, I think the system needs a little bit of an overhaul, I guess, is what I'm saying. I want to give a raise, but I just think this across the board without sort of making sure jobs are in the right places is, I just can't get there yet. So,
Okay.
thank you.
Lisa, did you have a?
Yes, Madam Judge, if I may, I need my memory refreshed. J.P. Lundstrom is chairman of the jails and law enforcement, and I know that he was in great support, as we all are, as increasing the hourly wage of the sheriff's department when we were shown that slide.
She's talking to you. I'm going to let you
And
answer.
I don't know, and I don't know if we appropriated any kind of funds to go towards increasing some of their,
I'm getting a nod over here
I'm just
from
trying to-
someone.
I was gonna answer.
what was,
We gave them a pay raise based on training.
based on training.
right.
Okay,
If they
I
reach a
forgot
certain
that
level
word,
of
training.
They get an increase in their pay automatically
Certifications.
if the sheriff has the money in his budget.
Certification, okay. The training was the word that I was looking for. Thank you.
Karen, you've got a puzzled look. What's? Okay. J.P. Ussery.
I'd like to tell you how much I appreciate you laying it out like this. Very helpful for all of us. I think we can look at the law enforcement separate, but they're included in this. I mean, there's some other people that are underpaid just as much as they are, and I understand that law enforcement it's a different deal. But that's a different deal of their choosing, and that comes with the territory. And this includes everybody, including those guys. And so if we're going to, it depends on if we want to be like Springdale or Fayetteville, or if we want to be like the other counties, which one we look at. And so I just thought I'd point that out, but I do appreciate very much you laying it out this way. Thank you.
Thank you.
J.P. Lundstrom.
I just wanted to make a comment. We hear this talk a lot about losing employees, and I know we do. We have a certain turnover every year. I know quite a number of law enforcement officers, and I know several that have quit Washington County Sheriff's Department and gone to smaller cities for less money because they had a problem with the management they were working for. And you have that in every business that you run. Everybody that leaves an entity don't leave just because they're not being paid enough. You know, and I want to see our people make equal pretty much to what everybody else out there is making in the market. But I was just checking a lot of these numbers you gave us, and our road superintendent's making more money than the Benton County man is. Yeah, and our truck drivers, heavy equipment operators are making more than they are. And we just heard a while ago, we're losing truck drivers because other people are making more money. Got a guy goes to our church that drives a dump truck for a living, he makes $10 an hour. So I don't think anybody's gonna quit our truck driving to go work for that guy. But anyway, you know, it's just hard to get this stuff nailed down because what's happening to one person isn't happening necessarily to the other. And I know by your chart you gave us, we got 40% of our workers making more than the others are. And we got, or 29%, and we got 61% making less.
Yes, so that's internal. That's not looking at market. That's just above the midpoint of our internal range. So that's not market.
That's not compared to this?
No, that's just internal evaluation against our own internal pay structure. So how many people are below the midpoint of our range grade, and how many are above midpoint?
Well, as I went through your numbers there, I saw an awful lot of them that were within a few cents or a dollar of what Benton County and some of them make. And here's a problem that the judge and I were talking about earlier. As long as cities are able to gobble up the county, our property tax revenue is going to decrease. Just going to happen. And when you raise taxes to increase that, you're raising taxes on fewer people.
No, everybody.
Huh?
You raise it on everybody.
And that makes it, well, you're raising it on everybody, but you don't get all the money. The cities are getting all the money. You know, Sheriff Helder was talking to me about his deputies making less than Benton County does. I said, well, move Walmart to Washington County and we'll give them a raise. You know, all those things add up.
Right.
That's where tax money comes from. But I really appreciate the time and effort you put into this and giving us all these numbers because it gives us something to actually do some comparing with.
Sure.
So hopefully it will come out well this year for the employees. Thank you,
Madam
Madam
Chair, let me
You've got a
just
comment? Sure.
mention, J.P. Lundstrom, that's a good point. If we were specifically going to compare with Benton County, and that's one of the reasons why we include their column, because they're a like-type entity, but we don't lose necessarily directly to them. We can lose to the private sector, and we can also lose to the cities. That's why it's important for us to make sure we're capturing as much market data as possible so that we have a true average for the market. And then as a quorum court, historically what you've done is said, we want to be competitive with the marketplace. We don't need to lead the marketplace. So what we've said is, let's adjust so that we can be at the average, at the market average, so then there's less risk, less chance to lose people to the market. Because yes, there are going to be private folks out there that might be able to pay $2 to $3 more and attract people away from the county. But if we can stay competitively to the average, we lessen that risk.
I understand, but there's a lot of companies, just like my own family company, that has had a huge increase in sales. And we've added 2 additional companies. So we're able to pay our people a lot better than we could 4 years ago. You know, and I'm not talking about a 50 cent an hour increase. I'm talking about taking them up $25 or so an hour. So the county can't compete with that because we can't go out and just create those kind of increases. We got to deal with the dollars that we have coming in from our property tax and our sales tax. That's all we have to spend. Just like this insurance thing, it's not the county that's putting that burden on people, it's the federal government. You know, there was a law passed that forced those prices up.
Yeah.
So now we've got to live with them. Somebody's got to pay that $800-some thousand a year. So those are just problems we have to deal with. Thank you, Madam Chair.
J.P. Harbison.
I, for one, think we need to do the 7% across the board, because when we start taking groups of people and putting them in like we have done before, like we gave everybody just a 25-cent increase, which those people at the bottom get more than those at the top. We need to put, if our employees are important to us, then we need to bring them up to market value. Yes, there are a few that are above market, but most of them are below market. And we have some decisions to make of how we're going to generate this money. We not only have salaries to think about, but we have other things that are going to cost $1 million. We need to think about what we're going to do about the juvenile court this next year. We have kicked that can down the road, and that court that courtroom and that facility needs to be brought up so it's safe for everyone. That's going to be over $1 million. So, you know, we have more needs than we have money. So we have got to decide if our employees are important. We've got to decide if our children are important. We've got to decide if roads are important. And we can't provide all these services with the current revenue, even though it's going to increase some. It is going to increase. But, you know, I think our number one priority needs to be bringing the county employees' salaries up to market value. Thank you.
J.P. Madison.
Thank you, Madam Judge. Mr. Johansson, I'm a little concerned that some of these charts you have, we're not comparing apples to apples. You've got the counties being compared to the cities being compared to private business, and I'd like to see a broader comparison with other counties in the same class as us. And part of my reasoning is the private sector, as we know, is pretty much different from the public sector. They may not have a retirement plan for their employees. Their holiday schedule is probably not nearly as good as the county holiday schedule is. And so I'm concerned about the inclusion of them perhaps warping how we are really being compared to others. I mean, the truck driver that left to go work for somebody else may no longer have a retirement package. He certainly doesn't have the holidays he had. So I would like to see you work on this comparison a little bit, because I'm not sure a county job can be fully compared to a job at McClinton Anchor. Thank you.
Madam Chair, let me, if you don't mind, let me respond.
You're welcome. Go ahead.
So last year, we went through that exercise where we included the other Class 6, some of the other Class 6 counties and Class 7 counties, and it diluted the percentage by at least 3 to 4%, and they're outside of our recruitment area. So yes, we can go through that exercise and it'll dilute the percentage, but it doesn't change the fact that the market is the market. So yes, we can go through that exercise, but I think what it'll do is it'll give you a false sense of thinking that you're matching market when you're not.
And I realize Northwest Arkansas is vastly different from Southeast
With
Arkansas.
a 2.9% unemployment rate.
Yeah, I know that. But the advantage of a county job versus a private sector job, it's hard to really weigh one against the other sometimes in strictly a dollars comparison because of the holidays, because of retirement packages or other packages. Or maybe their health insurance is better, or maybe their health insurance is not as good as ours. Do we take that into account? Or you don't get that information?
Based on your looking at benefits this year, there's a lot more being considered about benefits than we've compared in the past. So
you have compared our health insurance to McClinton Acres health insurance?
To the NOARC study, yes. And so are we competitive? Actually, the county, from how much is being paid out on a couple of those categories, is actually more than what the market, public and private combined, are paying for the premiums. And part of that's just because of what it takes to fund the county's
So
expenses.
you're saying county employees are paying more in Washington County
The combination of the two. So the combination of what the employees are paying and what the county's paying to fund the overall budget in categories of employees, employee spouse, and compared to what the market's paying, premium-wise, the county's paying more dollars because you're having to fund a larger usage budget or more experience, a higher budget per employee, a higher expense.
So do we have a more expensive insurance carrier?
No. You have a higher usage of medical services than the market. And so because of that, it costs more money to fund the overall budget.
And we are not sure why that is, apparently.
Well, that's where you'd have to dig into a lot of the usage, the medical usage. But yes, overall dollar for dollar, when we compare it against what the 53 organizations did in the NOARC study, the overall cost on each of those levels, total dollars, the market is paying less than what the county's paying total dollars per each of those levels.
And when you say market in that sense, you mean private
Yeah, it's
and
a
Benton
combination
County and
it's both.
Lowell?
Yeah, it's everybody that's in that list of organizations. There's 53 that responded in the NOARC study, and so on the average, the market is paying less to fund their overall health care, and a lot of that's associated with the experience, how much money is actually being, or how much medical care is actually being used.
I think you made the point I made earlier for me. Thank you.
I have J.P. Dennis and J.P. Pond. You're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Mine is a parliamentary question.
Sure.
We don't have a motion on the table. We said we were going to table all this information about insurance, and so we really don't have a motion to discuss. And so you're welcome. I'm saying you're welcome to stay, but let's put 9.1 on the board and discuss it along with this versus starting again here in a minute and putting 9.1 and starting all over again. So I'm just asking, should we not move on to 9.1?
Well, okay, I want one more, let me recognize one more person, and then we'll move on if that is agreeable with the court.
I think he brings a point of order, really.
Steve?
Okay, you don't have a motion on the floor at this moment in time. You have sort of free-form, open-ended discussion going on now about this topic. Now, you can continue this discussion, obviously, in light of Agenda Item 9, but I don't think that this is necessarily out of order. Because it's on the, you're discussing Agenda Item 8.
Okay, J.P. Pond.
And I'm interested in discussing Agenda Item 8. I appreciate your study, and it helps me to comprehend where we sit with our employees, and I mean all the employees. I'm not playing favorite with law enforcement or the roads or any of the other. You've taken in consideration all the employees, no matter what department they were in, where they sit with other employees in this region, in this area. And I completely recognize your recommendation of a 7% increase will put us back in a position where we're not continually training employees and then losing them to the cities or other places of employment. And I can't begrudge any employee that betters himself or herself by moving someplace where they can provide something a little better for their family. We've got, and we've already heard the discussion about some of them being below poverty level, and I never thought I'd see that again. That was rampant when I first came on the court. I thought, we're past that. We'll do what we can to take care of the employees, and we've done well to keep them here, working for the county and not moving on and having to train new people. And I'm for doing whatever we can to get to that 7% increase that we need to, so we don't lose so much money in training and hiring new people and starting over. Whatever we have to do to work together to get to that point. And I mean all the county employees. I don't mean let's talk about one department here and then maybe we'll see about another department. That's not going to help morale with the county employees. It's not going to help us keep trained employees. I thank you very much for the job well done that you always have as long as I've sat on this court. Thank you.
Okay, J.P. Maxwell and then J.P. Ecke. J.P. Maxwell.
Thank you, Madam Judge. On your chart here where you show which ones of our job titles internally are above the market and which ones are below, it looks like there's definitely some that we're at market level and above, and then we have some that are substantially well below. Is your recommendation that we make a flat across-the-board percentage increase for everybody and thus move everybody up that same percentage? So if you're 15% over now, you're going to be 19% over if you did a 4%, or 22 if we did the 7 or whatever. And if you're 30 below, you're still going to be 23 below. Is that your recommendation, or is there a more precise recommendation on making the ones that have a large disparity, bringing them up so that we're more competitive for those jobs and we're not losing people there? Let me just pause and say what I would like for us to avoid is we can make a big increase. We could do a 7% increase, and that sounds good. But if you're one of the departments that are substantially underfunded at a 20 or a 25%, you're still not going to retain those employees. If now you're 15% under market value instead of being 22% under market value, you're still substantially under market value, and if $1 an hour is going to pull you to another employer, we really haven't changed that outcome. So let me back up then and just re-ask the question. Do you think a flat across the board is the wisest, most clinical way to do that, or should we be more specific and take care of the trouble areas more so than we do the other areas, and then maybe work in a cost of living increase for everybody?
Yeah, so that really ties in with what J.P. Cochran was saying earlier about trying to use that schedule to see, to try and address the people who are further off the market than just a straight 7 across the board. The 7%, organizationally, that's easier to do because it covers the whole workforce at 7%. but it doesn't really address the folks that are 15% or 20% off the market. It improves things and it helps the overall average, but it doesn't necessarily help the ones who are further off the market. So what J.P. Cochran's saying is can we dig a little bit deeper and tie in with tenure in position, so that we're not looking at try to raise someone who's only been here a year compared to someone who's been here 5 years. You have to do that if you dig down to that level to make sure you don't create compression.
So you do recommend that we're a little more specific rather than just across the board
Well,
passing a percentage
it'd be
increase?
good to go, I mean, it takes some time, but it would be good to go through that exercise, so maybe it's more meaningful. You know, we may spend the same amount of dollars,
Right.
but it may be more meaningful to those who are further off the market than just a straight 7 across. Now, we're recommending 7 across the board, but we're willing to go to that detail if that really helps us be more effective overall for all the employees.
So ultimately, you feel like being individual increases, looking at it a little
Yeah.
more micro than macro would be better?
Yeah, probably individually as well as group by department.
Okay, because, I mean, I'm looking at the 7%, and it looks like if we increase everybody's salary 7% according to your recommendation, that's a $2,018,517 increase to our budget. So that's a substantial amount of money, and if we did that and we can retain employees and we increase morale, whatever, that's wonderful. What I would hope we didn't do was do that, but still have pockets where we're still losing, retraining, providing
That's true.
a ground for somebody else to get their employees that are seasoned 2 years from now, and we've taken on all that. So I just want to make sure that we get our money's worth.
Right.
And reward the folks appropriately, and not just make kind of a blunt force
Right.
across the board. Thank you very much.
Chipieki.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Does the county have a seniority pay raise plan? Like if you have, 1 to 5, 5 to 8?
We have,
Do we have that? I'm not sure.
We have a longevity bonus, but no, we do not pay increases based on tenure.
Okay.
They are eligible every December for a longevity pay increase per county ordinance.
Bonus, but not a pay raise.
No.
If you're here from so many years, and I believe that's what the sheriff was saying Springdale has, that the lieutenants know that if it's from 1 to 3 years, they know what their pay range is going to be, and they're able to retain them because they know that they're going to get that. Would that be?
Yeah, and that's what would be referred to as a step system, where you know what each step represents based on, some of those are based on a year, some of them might be based on what you're talking about, a couple of years before you get to that next step. But that schedule is already publicized with the steps as opposed to a minimum and a maximum.
Well, my question is how would that fit into your matrix?
It doesn't. You have to set it apart.
Is this something that we as a county would like to implement in our salary structure for the county, that, employees know this is what I'm going to be making here and here and here? Or is it too difficult to separate it out? I see Ms. Huffaker going, I can't believe she asked that question.
There's a complex answer. I don't think there's an employee here that would not love to know there was a guaranteed raise the next year or the year after that. The catch is there has to be budgeting for that the next year and the year after that. So if you create that mechanism, the court's basically committing to an increase every year and has to understand that means an increase in funding for salaries every year. So that's the complex answer. Yes, everybody would love a guaranteed raise. I think I'd be the first person to raise my hand and say that sounds great. But the catch is we have to have that commitment to the financing every year, and it is a guaranteed expense. So the court needs to think about that full circle.
Well, what comes to mind is, what do I want our society to look like here in Washington County? Bringing it close to home and here tonight, what do I want your faces to look like when I look at y'all in the eyes and you're looking at us saying, you hold the income of my family hostage some years because of whatever the budget process is? So that's a question that I think all of us need to ask. What do we want it to look like? If we wanted it to look like it's prosperous and healthy and robust, and we have sharp minds and sharp people that are working for us, and they're well-educated and trained, and I'm not talking about higher education, I'm talking about in-house training, and you have the skill sets to be the best and to make us the best and more efficient, what do I want it to look like? Boy, I want it to look like that, but what is it going to take? And I know the commitment is we need to take care of the salary first before you look at the other budgets. And would department heads and elected officials be willing to have us as a court to set that as our priority, followed by everything else? I guess these are questions that we as a court need to find out. But let us know what you're willing to do and what you're not willing to do, but we need to work together to do it. And the courts that were here before me, I value the things that they did, and I'm not going to criticize anything that they did. Because like I said, you stand in their shoes for a moment and get comfortable, and you'll see exactly where they come from when they made the decisions that they made. And some of them are brilliant, wise decisions. Other ones perhaps were not well thought out. Some were in opposition and a lot of fighting and wrangling going on. Nevertheless, those decisions were made. We are now faced with these decisions. I have been advised by my constituents, do not raise the ugly giant's head of a millage raise. You keep your head down and don't even suggest it. But I see what the decisions to cut the millage did to the county, and we're here because of that. There's no fault to them. They did what they felt was best, but things have changed, and so now we need to change with them. So we need to know, because the millage is going to affect you all as well. How do you feel about that? Let me know. Okay? Thank you. Thank you, Madam Judge.
This is going, like I say, and I appreciate all the conversation, but I've got three people. I've got Lundstrom, Cochran, and Lloyd, and then I think I'm going to cut the debate off on this. Lundstrom, talk quick.
I've just got a real quick question. Last year, Justice Cochran and I talked about the JSIP program and the pay ranges on each job title. And we talked about raising that, and we're lengthening it by 2% this year and maybe 5% every other year or something. You mentioned it a while ago, I think. Well, if you're going to give a 7%, if you're talking about a 7% increase, I don't think that would fit in some of those slots right now. So that's something that if we keep that program, then we're going to have to, I think, look at maybe increasing that 5% this year. I mean, it's just increasing the range where people can make more. Because you hit that, then you're just done. So that's something we need to think about also, is to see, because we've ignored that over the years, and we've had people we've had to come back and pay because they couldn't get the raise at all. So I'd like to see us maybe, I don't know whether Justice Cochran would agree with it or not, but I think it would be wise to raise that at least 5% this year. Doesn't cost anything to move that line.
Move the structure.
Yeah, but it gives people room to make more money in that program if we keep the program, which I assume we will. So thank you, Madam Chair.
J.B. Cochran.
Thank you, Judge. The question that I posed to you for that different calculation, is it possible that you could bring back to Justice Pond's Personnel Committee on the September 6th? Does that give you enough time to pull that together and kind of present?
Yes.
That's a couple weeks. Justice Pond, would that be okay for you on the personnel, since it is a personnel-related item?
If Blair's good with it, that'll be good.
Okay, good. Thank you. I appreciate you putting that on your agenda. And to Justice Lundstrom's comment about the top end of our structure, We haven't but once, while I've been here, limited anyone to not receiving the raises, and we had a handful in the sheriff's department that missed out, and we did go back and rectify that. It was because the sliding range moved, and we moved them out of order, and it cost them a little bit, and we were able to rectify that. I'll call it quits. Thank you, Judge.
J.P. Lloyd.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you for all your work you've done. This is fabulous. I love just looking at all this, and I'm a visual learner.
The one sheet that was handed out kind of piqued my interest in the hourly raise. Could you give us some pros and cons on that? Because as I'm looking at it, if we would give everybody a $1 raise per hour, that's $2,080 a year, and that would still save the county about $500,000 in savings versus the 7%. So I'd just like to hear just, briefly some pros and cons about that hourly, and I think we just kind of not looked at the hourly, but you did put it on one of your charts, and I found it interesting. You did the 25 cents, the 50 cents, the 75 cents, and then the $1, and then when I did some figures, that would give everyone $2,080 a year raise. Give us some pros and cons.
Yeah, so the court in the past has gone at different times. They've gone percentages and they've gone cents or a dollar amount because it does impact people differently at the lower end of the schedule. And usually when we went to the dollar route as opposed to a percentage, we were really trying to help people at the lower end of the schedule to get a little bit more than a 3%, because it might represent 4 or 5% based on what they're making. The downside to that, and what we said was you can't really do that every year, because then what happens is that the people at the upper, middle to the upper part of the range structure, that increase would be less than 3%. So the downside is it flips. So you really have to be careful not to do that consistently both ways, the same pattern, because it affects people on both ends of the schedule. So that's why we've alternated some, because we were trying to do a little bit here one year, and we were trying to do a little bit across the board the next year.
Thank you for that.
That's it.
Okay, I have recognized everyone. I think that we've had some good questions. I think that right now we still don't know any more than we did, but thank you, Blair. We appreciate this. Okay, we're going to move on to number 9, J.P. Dennis.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Steve, would you read 9.1?
An ordinance to raise the salaries and wages of non-elected county employees by 4% over 2016 base pay for budget year 2017. Whereas non-elected county employees have not had a raise in their basic compensation in 2 years, and whereas county employees are the most important component in good service to the people of Washington County, and whereas the Quorum Court recognizes the need to recruit and retain quality people in county employment, and whereas fair, adequate compensation is a key factor in attracting and keeping a good workforce, and whereas certain employees may receive raises either because of implementation of new U.S. Department of Labor rules and regulations concerning overtime and exemptions from overtime, or because of salary range adjustments, and whereas full-time elected officials' maximum salaries are automatically raised by operation of state law, now therefore be it ordained by the Quorum Court of the County of Washington, State of Arkansas, for budget year 2017, all non-elected Washington County employees shall have their base compensation raised by at least 4% over 2016 base pay. Article 2, an employee whose base compensation is raised by 4% over 2016 base pay due to the implementation of U.S. Department of Labor, there should be an "of" in there, rules and regulations concerning overtime and exemptions from overtime, or because of salary range adjustments, shall have no further raise in compensation for budget year 2017.
Thank you, Steve. I think everything's been said tonight that almost needs to be said. We've heard about the competitive market. We've heard about the cost to the employees, how it's gone up. We have not kept up on our pay increases. We pass it on insurance costs to them. So now is the time that we can all vote for this long overdue raise that the Washington County employees deserve. So please vote yes for our employees. And let's be fair. Thank you.
J.P. Harbison.
JP,
Dennis, will you accept a friendly amendment to change that to 7%?
Yes, I will.
Beat me to it. So we need to vote on that, don't we?
No, it's friendly.
Okay.
But there's not, I take that back. There's, due respect to Justice Dennis, I didn't hear him make his proposal in form of a motion.
I move that we accept 9.1.
And as amended,
As amended.
Well,
Well, you really think you got to do it first, and then the amendment comes.
that's right.
So,
So what do we?
There's the way I understand it, there's now a motion to adopt 9.1 by
Correct.
Justice Dennis.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Do we need to vote on that first, don't we?
No, now we can have
Okay.
debate and amendments and everything else.
Okay, J.P. Harbison?
To the 4% to the 7% to bring everybody up to the market value as presented by Mr. Johansson. Thank you.
And,
Do we need a second on that?
well, it depends on whether,
I accept that as a friendly amendment.
and it would have to be accepted by your second as well.
I accept.
Okay,
Second.
so friendly amendment has been accepted, so any discussion? Yeah, J.P. Maxwell?
Thank you, Madam Judge. Maybe I'm a bit confused, but I thought Justice Cochran's comment and our action earlier was to have Mr. Johansson come to personnel with J.P. Pond so we could discuss maybe a more specific way to roll out this kind of an increase. So it seems like if we do that, then there's no need for that discussion, or perhaps we're jumping ahead a bit here. So maybe there's a clearer way to do this. I'm open for observations.
J.P. Dennis?
I find all this discussion very interesting, and the fact that now everybody wants to give a merit raise, when a year ago, this same court denied a merit raise. I brought it forward, and it was voted down and voted no. So I'd like to see something done before we go into the budget process. Otherwise, this will be pushed off, and we won't do it. And so now's the time to do it. Now's the time to give the employees a raise. And then we'll budget everything else accordingly after that. Thank you.
J.P. Lundstrom?
I said it at our last meeting on this. Nobody has told me what this will cost. I don't have an idea. I know what a 2% raise cost it has in the past, but I don't have a clue what 7% would cost. I don't know yet, what our budget's gonna look like. So I'm just not gonna support any kind of a raise until I have time to look at the budget. I know we're talking about $300,000 or $400,000 for this deck. I know,
Here you are, right here. 2 million. That's what's gonna cost you.
okay. But I don't know whether we're gonna have the money in the budget to do that 2 million, plus the deck, plus 800 and some thousand for health insurance, plus. Now, if we wanna raise taxes for, that's all got to be discussed before this can be done, to know we're gonna have the money to pay it. Just to give a raise when you don't have the money in the treasury to pay it, doesn't work very well. So anyway, I will oppose this tonight. I may vote for it later after I see, what the money is. But it's gonna cost over $2 million.
Yeah, there's the figure right here.
Yeah, she got the figure for me. Thank you, Madam Chair.
J.P. Ussery?
I'd like to table this until our next quorum court meeting. We had so much discussion. This is so much information for me to digest, for all of us to. We received it. We have nothing against it. We want to do this, but we want to do it right. And I think in order for us to do it right, in order for us to move the people where they need to be moved, I think we need the time to let Mr. Johansson present the material to us. We need to look at it. We need to discuss it. And then we'll be able to pass something that'll work for everybody. So I make a motion that we table.
Yeah, we got a motion and a second,
Okay,
so there's
thank
no
you.
discussion on a table. So did you table this for a certain time?
We did.
Okay, next meeting, okay, I'm sorry, I missed that, so. Okay, then this number 9 has been set,
You gotta vote on the motion to table, Judge.
okay. Let's do roll call on the motion to table.
Bill Ussery. Daniel Balls. Harvey Bowman. Rick Cochran. Robert Dennis.
No.
Lisa Ecke. Ann Harbison. Sharon Lloyd.
Yes.
Tom Lundstrom.
Yes.
Eva Madison. Sue Madison. Joel Maxwell. Gary McHenry. Joe Patterson. Butch Pond.
Okay, this will be tabled until our next quorum court meeting. Yes, J.P. Cochran?
Judge, a comment on that. Since our salary discussion really does depend on the millage, would you please put a millage discussion on the next full quorum court so that we can have that? And I would think that it probably should precede the salary discussion so that we can get a consensus of the court as to what people are willing to do. That'll give us a better idea of what we can afford to do.
Okay, Steve, are
Thank
you
you,
getting
Judge.
that down?
I am, Judge.
Okay, thank you
More
very.
important that Karen gets it.
Karen, getting it
Yeah,
down?
we got it.
The two of you get it down, please.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, the next thing we have is a treasurer's report. Bobby? Phew, long night.
This will also be very brief because I know everybody's tired.
I bet we are.
So just on 10.1, everything general was a little down, revenues and expenditures, but the road and jail are up this month. Look at the next page. We started the month with 33.3 million in the bank, and we ended with 33.6, so just a bit of an increase. 1% tax and the jail tax were both up around 5%, which was good over the past 2 months. Road tax had its best increase of the year at 8%, so we're doing well there. 10.5 is the insurance report. We ended the month with 1.5 million, but as of right now, we have 1,358,000 in that fund. And that's all I have.
Any questions, comments for Bobby? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next thing we have is Ms. Ashley Farber for the comptroller's report.
11.1 is your unappropriated reserves report. And if you have any questions.
Any questions for Ashley?
What you're seeing and the differences, the ordinances that were passed last quorum court meeting. 11.2 is the summary of revenues and expenditures with your unappropriated reserves balance. And everybody should be at approximately 60% expended. Um, 11.3 is your summary of statement of operations for expenses. And this report includes your encumbrances that you'll see. And again, everybody should be approximately at 60%. And that's it.
Any questions? Thank you, dear. Let's see, the next thing we have an appropriation ordinance, Mr. Pond.
An ordinance appropriating the amount of $24,400 from the general fund to the building and ground budget for 2016. Article 1, there is hereby appropriated the amount of $24,400 to the machinery and equipment line item in the building and grounds budget for 2016.
Okay, this is appropriation for money for a new X-ray machine. We've been struggling with this machine out here where you come through the front doors for quite some time. And I recall at one time it was shut down for several days. They finally got it back working and they were afraid to ever shut it off again. It stayed on for several days before it quit again. It's determined that it'd be to try to make repairs on that machine, you're just throwing good money away with the bad.
Yeah.
I'd move that we pass 12.1.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Any public comment? Oh, I'm sorry.
Question.
Sorry.
May I address?
Yes, you may, yeah.
Do you know what they're going to do with that one out there? Will we be able to resell it and get maybe some funds from it or anything like that? Has anyone discussed that possibility?
I would assume that'd be going to salvage. You might find out from the.
Spare parts? Okay, thank you.
Okay. Okay, let's see. Public comment. Matt, come right on up.
Are we talking about everything, or?
No, we're talking about.
Oh, this is just specific on this, okay.
Just on this right here.
Okay, my bad.
Don't go home. We'll let you talk after a while.
I appreciate that, I'm just.
Okay, let's do roll call, Carly.
Bill Ussery?
Yes.
Daniel Balls? Harvey Bowman? Rick Cochran?
Yes.
Robert Dennis?
Yes.
Lisa Eki? Ann Harbison? Sharon Lloyd?
Yes.
Tom Lundstrom?
Yes.
Eva Madison?
Yes.
Sue Madison? Joel Maxwell?
Yes.
Gary McHenry?
Yes.
Joe Patterson? Butch Pond?
Yes.
This ordinance is passed. Number 13, J.P. Cochran.
Thank you, Judge. Attorney Zaga, would you please read 13.1?
An ordinance appropriating the amount of $135,500 from the general fund to the Election Commission budget for 2016, Article 1. There is hereby appropriated the amount of $135,500 to the small equipment line item in the Election Commission budget for 2016.
Is Jennifer still here? Yes.
Oh, yes, Jennifer's
Come on
here.
down. Tell us all about this.
Come on up, Jennifer.
Sorry.
Going to have a group meeting, okay.
Okay. Rick, did you have?
Yes, I wanted them to enlighten me on this. All I have is the letter that they are requesting $135,500 for more equipment. What are we buying and why?
Well, let us tell you why we're really here asking for this, and then we'll get to your specific, okay? If you remember, we came to you several weeks ago and got approved for $420,000 that we needed for the county's part of the acquisition of equipment, voting equipment. The state said they would give us $1.2 million. Well, the state didn't give us $1.2 million. After the fact, we got $1 million. So we're $200,000 short of what was promised and what we calculated we would need from the court here to get us whole. So that's the reason we're here. We're not buying any more equipment than you approved already. We're just trying to get the equipment bought that we allocated for this process. So there's no new equipment being involved here. It's just that we were $200,000 short in the funding level. And it's incumbent upon us now as a county to make up the shortfall.
I know you increased the number of voting machines from the old style to the new style significantly. How many voting machines is this involving?
Jennifer, you want to address that specifically?
So this would give us 20 more of the express votes, which is the machine you see right here. And then it would give us 25 more of the express poll books. That's the mechanism to check the voters in. I mean, really, we could use more. You can never have enough with the anticipated voter turnout that we will see for the general election. But I think that this additional equipment will definitely alleviate some of the long lines that we're going to see Election Day at the polling places.
So is this more equipment than originally planned? Or it's the same equipment, but the money needs to be funded because of the shortfall from the state?
So a couple of things happened. There was a shortfall from the state in what they had originally told us we would be able to purchase. They also had indicated when we spoke with them last year in 2015, we would be able to retain the old poll books that we had purchased in 2013. But now they've required us to purchase the poll books that we're using now. So that changed how we had to place our order in May. They also changed in regards to the voting equipment, the express vote, we originally thought would be a tabulator. So it would be all one machine and it would count your ballot there, but it wasn't federally approved. And so that meant we had to purchase what's called the DS200, which is basically the large ballot box that your ballot will go in. So that adjusted the number of equipment that we actually needed in terms of what we would use at our polling place. So it changed our dollar amounts and how we spent it.
How many voting machines will you have with the anticipated purchase?
So right now we have 288 of the express votes, 50 of the DS200s, and we have 154 of the tablets. Now the county clerk's office with this new tablet system also has to have tablets in her office, and that 154, it includes the tablets for the county clerk's office as well. So we're asking for an additional 20 of the express votes and then 25 of the tablets.
Okay. Thank you, Judge.
J.P. Madison.
Thank you, Madam Judge. When you say the state, I want to know which division of the state. I mean, where do we need to point the finger here?
Well, you can start with the legislature if you want to. Number one, they
Did they change their appropriation or not put it in Category A?
They did not. They didn't fund it.
Well, we should never have relied on Category
Can't
C.
help that. The Secretary of State's office called us and told us. So
So the Secretary of State said you had the money.
They allocated the money to us, and then at the very end, we were 200,000 short.
Maybe the Secretary of State needs to hire somebody that can add and subtract.
Well, let me tell you what I think happened, okay?
I don't need to know any more. I'm going to vote for the ordinance, but I think it's appropriate that we know who is the cause of the county having to take up the slack here when we were promised money in good faith. Thank you. That's all I know.
Keep in mind that when they allocated it too, they were only giving us numbers like we had in 2006. So we were already behind.
We still are. We still have equipment that's equivalent to 10 years ago, dollars-wise. That's where we stand. So ongoing, there will be other acquisitions for equipment.
Did I understand you to say that they funded this according to the 2006 census?
Yes, statewide they did that.
The voter registration list that they used in 2006, when they gave all the counties new equipment, they used those same figures when they determined how much money counties were going to get this time around.
Now, I need to ask one more question. Who is they?
Secretary of State's office.
Thank you.
Secretary of State's office is charged with the responsibility of voting in the state.
Yes, I knew that they were, so. J.P. Lloyd.
Thank you, Judge. I want to play the other side of the coin here. If you don't get this tonight, where will we not have voting machines? I mean, is there a location that we will not have them? Are we going to cut back? I mean, where would we cut back?
Then we probably will have to pare down the number of voting places, or we'll operate with less equipment at each one. So you'll have long lines in several different places that you would not have normally had.
So are you adding, would these machines go for the places that you're adding for us to vote?
This will go across the board, everywhere. We're not asking to expand locations.
That was my question.
No, we're not doing that. We're still running the same polling places that we always have with our vote centers. But we need more equipment because the voters.
So no more voting centers are added?
No,
Okay.
not adding any more voting centers at this point.
So basically what we did was, if you want to take the rodeo grounds, which is one of our biggest polling locations in Springdale, it has close to 6,000 registered voters at that one location. When we look at expected voter turnout of 75 to 80%, and then if you calculate even, let's say, 35% to 40% of early vote, that means we can expect to see close to 3,000 people voting at the rodeo grounds on Election Day. So when we're looking at voting equipment, that's what I looked at to see where were the places that we were going to be short voting equipment and needed to add what we had already allocated to that place.
So these new machines will just be piecemealed
Yes.
at different locations?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Based on voter turnout and demand.
Okay, thank you.
J.P. Dennis.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. J.P. Madison asked exactly my questions. The only one she didn't ask is, what can we do about it? I don't think we ought to accept this from the state. I'm a little bit tired of the state. I just tell it like it is. I'm tired of it. I'd like a name. I like names put on it when you say Secretary of State. Tell the public who the Secretary of State is, please, for the record.
Mark Martin.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
He lives in northwest Arkansas.
Oh, I know who it is. I wanted it on. Well, I'll be honest, I'm mad about this. This angers me.
Okay, and go ahead, I'm
It just
sorry.
angers me because the state, we just let the state do anything they want to us, and we don't push back. And our legislatures, where are they? Where are they? You know, they're quiet, except for when they want you to vote for them. Well, I'm not going to vote for one of them if they don't do better than this. You know,
Well,
they're
but you have
putting the screws to Washington
But
County.
you have to understand the whole process.
Oh, I don't have to.
Well, if you want to make the right decision, you need to know how this thing comes down, and it comes from the legislature, number one, the governor, number two, and the secretary of state, number three. Nothing happens at the secretary of state if it doesn't come out of the legislature and come through the governor.
Thank you very much for saying that.
I mean, that's the way it works. And Martin didn't get a dime this year. The Secretary of State's office did not get one dime from the legislature or the governor for the electronic equipment. The 10 counties that have the new equipment today came out of his budget that he jerry-rigged around and robbed from Peter to pay Paul to get the money together to do the 10 counties that he did. Yeah, we can blame him. I don't like a lot of things that he does either, and he knows it, okay? But by the same token, he doesn't take all the heat for it.
Okay.
Thank you.
No, I've got J.P. Madison.
I move to pass 13.1 and call the question.
I have called the question.
Well, I don't know if we need that, but I move to pass 13.1.
I have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? I think we'll have to have public, I'm sorry, go ahead. Oh, J.P. Pond.
Yes, ma'am.
You had the floor.
Thank you. I just, Mr. Ackerman, when, I'd like for, when you're doing business with the Secretary of State, you let him know I appreciate very much that the money they sent. I don't intend to take money we got from them and then turn around and give them a thrashing because we didn't get more. So you thank Martin for
We'll
me
share that with
very
him.
much.
Let me make one other
right
observation, if
ahead.
I may. Time is of the essence with our situation here. The voting season is here. Now, we would appreciate some timely movement on this request, up or down, whatever your choice is. But let us know so we can move on. The clock's running, we don't have any time left. We got a school board election coming up next. We've already programmed, it's on the system right now. The primary's coming up, and then the general's gonna be here, and God help us, it's gonna be big.
Thank you, Bill.
Jennifer can demo this for y'all too, if anybody.
And it's set up that if any one of you wanted to do a sample vote, you could.
Okay.
It's quite an improvement, but thank you.
Go ahead.
Would you just affirm that as of today, you are not adding any more polling places, additional polling places to what already exists? No matter what happens in the future, the polling places remain the same.
Well,
You can't do that.
you're going to force me to bring up an issue that has nothing to do with this.
Well, I just want I want that confidence when I vote that I know.
Let me interject
Now, wait,
something. We've already had one polling place that has told us they don't even want to be on the school election and have been for many
guys, I'm
years.
sorry, but we're out of order on this. We're totally, we're working on an ordinance here, and we're getting off that, and we're getting out left field. I'm going to have to put a stop to that, and I'm terribly sorry, so. Okay, any public comment on this? Okay, let's call the roll.
Bill Ussery,
Yes.
Daniel Balls, Harvey Bowman, Rick Cochran,
Yes.
Robert Dennis, Lisa Ecke, Ann Harbison, Sharon Lloyd,
No.
Tom Lundstrom,
No.
Eva Madison,
Yes.
Sue Madison,
Yes.
Joe Maxwell,
Yes.
Gary McHenry,
Yes.
Joe Patterson, Butch Pond.
Yes.
Judge, it's an appropriation ordinance, and it does not pass on first reading.
Okay, so we.
I have 9-3. Is that the correct tally? You can do that.
I move to suspend the rules and pass to move on to second reading by title only.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to suspend rules. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay,
An ordinance appropriating the amount of $135,500 from the general fund to the election commission budget for 2016.
So now I would move to suspend the rules and move it on to third and final reading by title only.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to suspend the rules for third and final reading. Any discussion? Call the roll, please.
This is just on the motion, Judge.
Yep, it's just
Yeah,
suspend the
let's-
rules.
Let's go ahead and call the roll.
Bill Ussery,
Yes.
Daniel Balls, Harvey Bowman, Rick Cochran,
Yes.
Robert Dennis,
Yes.
Lisa Ecke, Ann Harbison,
Yes.
Sharon Lloyd,
No.
Tom Lundstrom,
No.
Eva Madison,
Yes.
Sue Madison,
Yes.
Joe Maxwell,
Yes.
Gary McHenry,
Yes.
Joe Patterson, Butch Pond.
Yes.
That's a simple majority. So that passed.
So now
now
we're
read
ready
it by
to take it for the final reading, so.
Oh, sorry. An ordinance appropriating the amount of $135,500 from the general fund to the election commission budget for 2016.
So now do I move to pass it again?
No, this will be the final.
Okay, move to pass.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yes, if I may, Madam
Yes.
Judge. I really, really want the assurance that no new voting places are going to be added as of today. I'm not talking about taken away or not going to use that one. And I will bring it up because a lot of my constituents have asked me, actually they haven't, they have aggressively brought this up, and that's how I know that the University of Arkansas campus wants voting places for their college students. And if this is where this equipment is going to go, I can't support this ordinance. If I can be assured that this is not going to go there,
We've got a
then
point of
I will
order
support
raised.
it. I know. Point of order, because it's the University of Arkansas, and who votes
I am
down
going-
there?
Huh?
And I'd like to know
going to have to stop.
exactly
Lisa.
what this equipment and where it's going.
You're out of order. We have to stop
Thank you.
this.
I want to know where it's going, honestly.
And I second Lisa.
Well, the chair's sustained, and I think she did it both in response to J.P. Madison's point of order and on her own. So the point of order, there has been a ruling from the chair.
Yes. So we're ready to vote.
Unless you, no, you need to take public comment because you have a new motion.
Do we have any public comment? Okay, no comments. Let's call the roll.
Bill Ussery,
Yes.
Daniel Balls, Harvey Bowman, Rick Cochran,
No.
Robert Dennis,
No.
Lisa Ecke,
No.
Ann Harbison,
Yes.
Sharon Lloyd,
No.
Tom Lundstrom,
No.
Eva Madison,
Yes.
Sue Madison,
Yes.
Joe Maxwell,
Yes.
Gary McHenry,
Yes.
Joe Patterson, Butch Pond.
Yes.
It passed, didn't it? No. It failed?
7-5, and it takes a majority of the court to pass.
Maybe if you'd let them answer the question, we would have an idea whether to vote for it or not.
Well-
So I can answer the question. I'm going to say two things.
Okay.
First of one, Paul, under Arkansas law, section 75418, it is the decision of the election commission where to put polling places. So we decide as a commission where to put polling places. I'll say number two, this equipment can be used. One great thing about this equipment versus the old equipment was that the old equipment, you had to use it either as an early voting location or somewhere on election day for a vote center or a polling location, whatever you had. So this equipment you can use for either one. So this equipment is going to be out there in the field on election day at a voting center. So that's my response. Number one, it's the commission's decision to decide where to put polling places. Number two, that the equipment that we are asking for the money to fund is going to be at a vote center that we have that's there on election day.
Okay, I'm going to start. J.P. Lundstrom.
I got picked first.
Hang on just a minute, we got some,
I mean, with all due respect, the ordinance has failed. The court's taken final action on it. Continuing discussion on this is,
futile.
well,
Point of information, yes, instead of a point of order. Is that
Turn on your mic and then,
I have a point of information.
Maybe Steve can help you on that. Let's see.
Well, okay. So, I mean, we had 3 readings on this, and it passed of the majority present. All right, because there are 7 votes for and 5 votes against. So you're saying there had to be one more vote because there are 15 people on the court. Is that correct?
yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Tom wants to make a statement to the commissioners.
I just wanted y'all to know that I'm not voting against this because I'm voting against you. I'm voting against the state of Arkansas and our legislature. We've got a resolution down there now asking them to pay us 100% of what it cost us to house their prisoners. They're paying half of it. We're having to hire people for the, whatchamacallit over there, because they quit paying them. You can just go on and on, all these state mandates that they don't fund. And this is just another example of them. And I don't think they're gonna quit doing that until they see what impact it has on the counties. So that's the reason I voted the way I did, just to let you know.
J.P. Madison, I'm going to let you make a statement.
I understand that J.P. Lundstrom and J.P. Dennis voted no because they're trying to send a message to the state, but they picked the one opportunity to vote no that hurts the citizens of Washington County. On Election Day, people will now be standing in line and being turned away to vote because we decided to send a message to the legislature and Mark Martin. We've not done that on anything relating to jails or anything, but on the one time it comes down to a direct impact on the citizens, we had 8 votes on the first round. This was gonna pass. And because we're worried about students having access to voting, we're denying funding to the Election Commission when they're here to say to us, please give us this money. The money that we gave them already is now not going to be as effective because we turned down this additional request. I think y'all are being ridiculous. I'm sorry. I'm upset
You're
about
out of
it.
line.
Judge, may I make a comment?
Yes, please go ahead, Bill.
You know, your actions tonight are going to impact Washington County severely before it's over with. And I want to make an observation to you that you haven't, let me put it this way, we as a county have not purchased voting equipment in over 10 years. We had no part in the original purchase 10 years ago in 2006. The feds came in, mandated that, the state appropriated the money and paid it. Or actually it came down from the feds, if you want to know the truth. It came down to our legislature and they gave it to the Secretary of State. We as a county have not purchased one dime worth of equipment in 10 years. We get $1 million from the state was a gift. You know what you could have done? you could have been responsible for $1.6 million. That's where the difference is. Tom, whether we got anything in the past, or you got bills down there, or you're waiting on reimbursements for whatever, is academic. This was free money, came from the state, the $1 million. We could have been asking you for another $1 million, but we didn't. And the voters in this county are going to be the ones who are penalized over a very, very poor decision of this court.
I'm going to have to, yes, yeah.
I'd like to ask our attorney, it's my understanding somebody from the prevailing side, which would be the no votes, would have to have a motion to reconsider for us to take this up again. I'm concerned that the Election Commission has committed the funds to buy these machines, and now we're going to be left owing a debt. And we've got quite a number of members absent here. So would you just refresh our memory about the procedure for
The,
Having
somebody
had a
who
vote.
voted no tonight would have to call to reconsider this vote. That's and it can be done tonight, or it could be done whenever y'all are in session next. That's right.
when does this bill have to be paid? Do we know that?
Well, we haven't ordered the equipment. We
Oh, you
have it
haven't.
standby. We have it standby because we knew the time frame we were working with.
So when do you have to order it to have it here for the November
We'd like to
election?
order it in the morning. Now, if we
In the
don't have
morning?
it- Yeah, we'd like to order, we're ready to pull the trigger on it. And the
Judge,
manufacturer-
Let's get
I move
order,
that we
and
reconsider.
JP Dennis, you voted no,
Yes.
correct? And you're going to be, you want to recall it?
Yes.
Do you want to reconsider?
I move that we reconsider.
Okay, are we in order now?
Does the second have to be from?
No, the second does not have to be from the
Okay, we
prevailing
have a
side.
motion to reconsider by one of the no votes. We have a second on it.
That's a simple motion. What, if I can clarify, you're not voting on the ordinance now. You're voting to reconsider. You'll still have to go through a roll call vote.
So, JP Harbison?
I don't know if this is out of order or not, but I think we had two things of why people voted against. One was because of Martin or the state, and the other because they don't want a voting machine at the university. And that's limiting people to vote. And they would say whether they're gonna put a voting place at the university or not. I don't know if that decision's been made.
Let's move on with this. This is beginning to get quite emotional. Let's go ahead and move on with this. And right now, we need to make a vote to reconsider. So, roll call.
Bill Ussery,
Yes. Now, we're doing a roll call to reconsider.
Daniel Balls, Harvey Bowman, Rick Cochran. No. Robert Dennis. Yes. Lisa Ecke. No. Ann Harbison.
Yes.
Sharon Lloyd. No. Tom Lundstrom.
No.
Eva Madison.
Yes.
Sue Madison.
Yes.
Joe Maxwell.
Yes.
Gary McHenry.
Yes.
Joe Patterson. Butch Pond.
Yes.
Here we
Now,
go.
yes, the motion to reconsider prevailed, and you have had 3 readings. No, wait a minute. No, I'm trying to think about whether the reconsideration throws it back on the First Amendment, first reading.
I move to suspend the rules and skip all the readings and go to number 3 and read by title only.
Second.
And pass.
You can't do that one yet.
Okay, so,
The motion is to suspend the rules. Yes, Judge.
all in favor of suspend the rules, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign.
No.
I'd like to move to table this until after the commission has made a decision that they will be making tomorrow, so that way we have some more information, and then be brought up at the next meeting that we have.
I second it.
That's
That's a privileged motion, Judge.
all
It's-
automatic, okay.
Was she, no, point of order, had she been recognized?
I'm sorry.
Well, that's a question, not a point of order, but, Judge, did you recognize Justice Ecke?
Yeah.
Okay. There's the answer to your question, JP Madison.
Okay, our next thing that we have is
Wait,
county. I'm
you
sorry.
have to vote on the motion to table.
Let's do roll call for tabling.
I do have a question. I didn't get the no's on the suspend the rules, so I was wondering if we could do.
She called the ayes have it.
Okay, Carl, call the roll for the table is.
Bill Ussery? No. Daniel Balls? Harvey Bowman? Rick Cochran?
Yes.
Robert Dennis?
No.
Lisa Ecke?
Yes.
Ann Harbison?
No.
Sharon Lloyd?
Yes.
Tom Lundstrom?
Yes.
Eva Madison?
No.
Sue Madison?
No.
Joe Maxwell? Gary McHenry?
No.
Joe Patterson? Butch Pond?
No.
Now,
Now can I move to pass it again?
Okay.
I move to pass it again.
wait.
You read it, did you read it?
No, yeah, no, that's good. I thought, never mind.
Okay. So we are voting to approve this ordinance, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, roll call.
Bill Ussery?
Yes.
Daniel Balls? Harvey Bowman? Rick Cochran?
No.
Robert Dennis?
Yes.
Lisa Ecke? Ann Harbison? Sharon Lloyd? Tom Lundstrom?
No.
Eva Madison?
Yes.
Sue Madison?
Yes.
Joe Maxwell?
Yes.
Gary McHenry?
Yes.
Joe Patterson? Butch Pond?
Yes.
8-4.
It passed.
I have 8-4, Judge.
Okay. It's over. Okay, now let's move on. The next thing I have is a county judge report. The only thing I have
Wait,
on the report.
item 14, Judge.
Rick didn't want this one anyway.
It's easy.
JP Cochran.
It's easy.
Thank you, folks, very much.
Attorney Zega, would you please read 14.1?
An ordinance appropriating the amount of $10,000 from the general fund to the Quorum Court budget for 2016. Article 1, there is hereby appropriated the total amount of $10,000 to the following line items in the Quorum Court budget for 2016. Other professional services, $4,000. Advertising and publications, $6,000, for a total appropriation of $10,000.
Thank you. Basically, our budgets are pretty well expended. We need an influx of some funds for our government channel. They billed us for part of last year in this year, so it didn't get into last year's budget. And our budget review, our ordinance review committee has put up quite a few fees for republishing. So I move to pass 14.1.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Any public comment? Roll call.
Bill Ussery?
Yes.
Daniel Balls? Harvey Bowman? Rick Cochran?
Yes.
Robert Dennis? Lisa Ecke? Ann Harbison? Sharon Lloyd? Tom Lundstrom?
Yes.
Eva Madison?
Yes.
Sue Madison? Joe Maxwell? Gary McHenry?
Yes.
Joe Patterson? Butch Pond?
Yes.
This ordinance is adopted. The next thing I have is that Washington Regional has had one of their board of directors to leave, and they have asked us, the Board of Directors of Washington Regional Medical Center has nominated Charles Robinson for the approval by the Quorum Court for services on the Medical Center Board of Directors. Charles Robinson is a Vice Chancellor of Student Affairs at the University of Arkansas. He is replacing Sharon Gaber, who resigned from the board on April the 30th and left the U of A about the same time. So what I'm asking is the approval from the court to appoint this Mr. Robinson to serve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay, thank you. Next thing we have is
Committees.
okay, we have our committees. County Services, JP Madison.
We did not meet, Judge.
Public Works, Butch.
Yes, ma'am, I'll be as brief as I can on this. We did have some talk about these GPS systems on the county road equipment, and just some discussion about it. Everybody's kind of still out on it, waiting on some statistics, some information. The significant thing that we did was pass on with recommend pass the money appropriated for the x-ray machine, and I appreciate y'all bringing that along. Thank you.
Jail law enforcement, J.P. Lundstrom.
We did not meet for lack of agenda, thank you.
Ordinance review, J.P. Ussery.
Yes, ma'am, we did meet, and we had a pretty healthy discussion on some of the ordinances on the personnel, and a section of it was passed, and we'll be seeing that at the next Quorum Court meeting. And then we're just continuing to work our way through that. The next thing we're going to be talking about is hopefully at the next meeting, we'll get to where we're talking about the IT department. But that's where we're at the moment. So that concludes my report.
Thank you. Number 17, resolution with the interlocal agreement, J.P. Madison.
Judge, I'm actually going to move to table 17.1 and 18.1 again, because I understand there's been some discussion at the Goshen City Council about whether they're really wanting to do this. I think the best thing is just to put this on a hold.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to tables 17.1 and 18.1. I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay, that was the next thing we have is number 19, J.P. Ussery.
Steve, will you read this for us, please?
Sorry. May I? I was going to respectfully
Yes.
request that you move to
Yes,
suspend
please,
the rules and read it by title
suspend the rules and read by title only.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor of suspending rules, title only, say aye.
An ordinance amending Washington County Code Sections 2-31 through 2-33.
Okay, is there any discussion? Oh, I'm sorry. Move to pass 19.1.
You can't do it yet. It still has to be read 3 times, even by title.
Okay, move that we suspend the rules and we read it a second time.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor of suspending rules, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign.
An ordinance amending Washington County Code Sections 2-31 through 2-33.
Okay, move to suspend the rules and read it the third time by title only.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign.
An ordinance amending Washington County Code Sections 2-31 through 2-33.
Okay, now move to pass 19.1.
Any discussion? Do I have any public comment? Carly, would you call the roll?
Bill Ussery,
Yes.
Daniel Balls, Harvey Bowman, Rick Cochran, Robert Dennis, Lisa Ecke, Ann Harbison, Sharon Lloyd, Tom Lundstrom,
Yes.
Eva Madison, Sue Madison, Joe Maxwell, Gary McHenry, Joe Patterson, Butch Pond.
This ordinance is adopted. I don't have any other business before this court, do I? Yes. Okay.
We'll see Bridge.
I'm going to let you make the
They sent a
announcement.
press release, we're good.
We'll see what Bridge.
Turn your mic on.
And the work should start very soon. And a Missouri company got the bid, so we have a bridge coming. That's all.
Yay. Other business. Any citizens' comments?
Now
You are in danger, Matt.
I get a little punchy when and I realize it's late, so I'll be brief. My name's Matt Durrett. I work in the prosecutor's office, and I just want to speak briefly about the issue of the employee raises. My concern is that there was, or at least there appeared to be some talk about treating some employees differently based on this, based on the printout that Blair Johansson brought, concerning how much they're paid as opposed to their counterparts elsewhere. There are 27 employees, county employees, who are paid more than their area counterparts, which by my math is about 15%. I have 5 of those employees in my office. And when you make a decision on what you're going to do, and believe me, I support employee raises, but when you make a decision on what you're going to do, I've got 5 of these people. Take into consideration why they're paid more than their area counterparts. Because of those 5 employees, they total 100 years of service to this county. They've been here for a combined 100 years. And they bring, that's why they're paid more. It's not because they're overpaid. And they bring in much more value than they take away in compensation. In other words, they are invaluable to my office. And I think if you ask other department heads on those 27 employees, they will say the same thing. And my concern is, and I may be putting the cart in front of the horse, but my concern is that they won't get the same consideration for raises as others, that they may not get a raise or they may get a lesser raise. And I don't want to send the signal that because they've been here longer, because they're getting paid more, than it gives the appearance that they're overpaid. And that's what my concern is. So I would just ask you to take into consideration why they're paid more than their counterparts, because they're worth it. I know that my people are, and I know that others would say that. So thank you very much for your time, and thank you for all your work.
Thank you.
Talking things with you on this conversation, I know we need to go home. We are losing someone in our IT department a week from tomorrow. Someone offered them over $20,000 more to leave us and go somewhere else. So this is what we're facing, particularly when you have skilled people that are in much demand. So like Matt's conversation, there are people that have got the expertise and people that are doing these kind of things. I certainly don't want the county to lose them. So I just wanted to throw that out to you. Not that it makes you any difference. Anyway, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion adjourned.
I'm sorry, David, come on. Identify yourself.
My name is David Williams. I work down at your road department. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you. On pay, I believe that the most employees are underpaid. Those that are above, I'm sure they're getting paid exactly what they're worth, and they're probably worth more. We have a bunch of great employees at Washington County, I do believe. One thing that I heard discussed was the potential of a step system, and I've been part of a step system in past employment. I think it's great. And as far as the budgetary items, saying you have to have it because it's automatic, it's not automatic. The city of Fayetteville does pay freezes occasionally, because I was part of that when I worked there, which is basically in essence what the Quorum Court has done in the past years. They have done a pay freeze because we haven't got pay raises. So you could do that still with step pay, but when the money's there, it's already automatic, it's in there, employees know, I'm going to be able to work. And when I was at City of Fayetteville, we had, I think at first it was 7 steps, then they changed it to 4. And in 4 years, you would go from the bottom employee to top out pay. And that was the pay range. And unless there was a pay freeze. So you had the ability to know, I'm going to move up, I'm valued, and if an employee is not someone that you want to give that raise to, for whatever reason, they should be terminated. And you shouldn't have that employee, and then you'll have the best workforce possible. So with that, any raise you give us, I appreciate. It's not going to change how I work for you. I'm going to continue doing the best job I can, because that's what I was hired. I believe it's a contract, and that's what I'm going to do. But any consideration for pay, I know everybody would appreciate. And thank you all for your dedication to the county. Good evening.
Any other public comments?
My name is Brian Comstock. I'm with the Sheriff's Department. I've been there 21 years. Thank you for your service to the county, because I know each and every one of you didn't take this position for the money. And that's not why we do that either in law enforcement. I have never been above the base pay for my grade. 21 years. I think that merit raises are very important to define where people are, because if we do across the board raise, now don't get me wrong, I don't want to take money from anybody because everybody here deserves it, but if we give across the board raise, it does not give any incentive for the person who doesn't work as hard as others to work harder. And the people who do work hard, they get more piled on top of them. They continue to get more tasks from their supervisors. About the longevity pay, I heard you all talk about earlier. Longevity pay is I think mine is $750 for 21 years. It's great. It comes at Christmas time. That's awesome. But it's a very small portion of my pay. I am a corporal, so you can look on the list and see where I fall on the pay scale, and I tell you I'm at the bottom. And I don't believe that is because of my work ethic. You can look at my evaluations and see that is not it. We do evaluations every year, and you have the best law enforcement in the state. I think you need to take that into consideration. We are a model for other sheriff's departments. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Anyone else?
Move we adjourned.
Second. I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.